It's After Hours with Amy Lawrence on CBS Sports Radio, and you can find me on Twitter, A-Law Radio, or our Facebook page if you want to react to what I believe should be the number one sports story in America right now. Far more important and impactful than Championship Sunday or a big trade in Major League Baseball or the suspensions in the NBA. Way more important than video tributes and who deserves what when. In fact, I'm continually baffled, not only at the lack of coverage in the media, and I'm part of that, though this isn't the first time we've talked about this topic on my show, but I'm confused about the lack of outrage, the cries for blood, the social media mob calling for action. Because this story with USA Gymnastics and Michigan State Athletics is no different than what happened at Penn State. It's not that different than what happened with Baylor football. And man, the second anyone says Penn State football, the second anyone talks about Baylor football these days, instantly the backlash, instantly the tweets, sadly the jokes. But still, people aren't letting it go. They're not moving on. They're not forgetting, and they shouldn't. Then why not the same outrage for the now 140 young women who have bravely come forward to say they were sexually abused by a former doctor for USA Gymnastics and for Michigan State Athletics? Why not? Same culture of access, same culture of fear for the athletes, same culture of enabling this doctor to continue unfettered, unchecked, unsupervised, and uninvestigated. The reason it's big this week, and sadly there are people who don't know about it. I just got a tweet from, I think his name is Steve, saying he consumes sports media stories. He's always online. He's always watching and listening. And this is the first he heard about it earlier on my show. What's taking place this week is a sentencing hearing for Larry Nassar in Michigan. Supposed to run the course of 4 days. Prosecutors are recommending 40 to 125 years in prison. He's already in prison on child pornography conviction. He's admitted, okay, so these are not just accusations or claims. This former doctor from Michigan State and USA Gymnastics has admitted, he's pled guilty to 10 counts of sexual abuse. 10. At last count, there are 140 females who've told their story, who've come forward, who've said, he abused me too. But he got a plea deal, and they've moved to sentencing. And this is taking place in Michigan, where 98 stories are being told. 98 of the 140, and I'm sure there are more. But this is the part that I wish more people knew about. You've got 98 victims or parents of victims who are either standing in front of this judge and Larry Nassar facing their abuser, or they're reading statements, or statements are being read on their behalf as he faces sentencing. The videos will break your heart. I thought about playing some of the audio here on the show, but I want you to look it up. I want you to take that step. Be proactive. Watch the video testimonies of these sexual assault victims. Read their stories. Maybe go back and listen to my conversation with gold medalist Dominique Moceanu, who joined the show last year. And this was before we had the names of Allie Raceman and Gabby Douglas and Michaela Mulroney and Simone Biles. This is before we knew how many young girls had been abused by Larry Nassar. But Dominique told me about the culture of abuse. Now, hers was physical and verbal, but the culture of fear that allowed his access to continue because the athletes were afraid. They were afraid of speaking out. They were told to shut up and do what they were told. Shut up and obey. If you want to compete, if you want to be part of the Olympic team, keep your mouth shut. We now know that Allie Raceman was threatened. If she spoke out, she was threatened. That she would lose her spot, that she would lose her opportunity. Michaela Mulroney was paid off to stay silent under the guise of, oh, we're investigating Larry Nassar. Except the first claims against Nassar, the first accusations of abuse took place in 1999 and 2004. The guy wasn't fired until 15, 16 from his different jobs. We're talking about gymnasts, figure skaters, volleyball players, college athletes in other sports. We're even talking about friends of the family. A little girl, 6 years old, whose family used to spend time at Dr. Nassar's house. I don't blame the victims. It's hard to come forward. It's devastating. It's embarrassing. It's humiliating. You wonder if it's your fault. You don't want to talk about it. You think if you don't talk about it, it'll go away. But also, who's going to believe you? And you so desperately want to compete. You're in danger of losing everything that you've worked for. All of those emotions. And so it takes bravery for these young women to stand there in court and face this monster. I'm proud of them. They're not all famous. They didn't all win gold medals like Allie and Simone and Michaela and Gabby. Even Maggie Nichols, who was an elite gymnast for a while, is now competing at the University of Oklahoma and helped them win a national championship. They're not all names you know. Most of them were in the system for a while, college athletes, and they've tried to move on. And now finally getting a chance to tell their story. But here's the thing. It shouldn't be this week. It shouldn't have taken this long. It's After Hours with Amy Lawrence on CBS Sports Radio. Larry Nassar was allowed access to these little girls and these young women for decades. I want people to get mad about it. I want people to be as upset and outraged and be calling for changes as loudly as they did with Penn State and with Baylor football. Y'all remember what happened just, a month ago? I don't remember exactly the time frame. It wasn't that long ago when Greg Schiano was offered a head coaching job at Tennessee. And because of his connection to Penn State football, even though there's been no proof that he was enabling Jerry Sandusky or part of the cover-up, even though there's been no proof of that, what happened? There was such an uproar, there was so much outrage that he might actually be given a head coaching job at Tennessee that the administration backed down. Why isn't there that same outrage, that same anger, that same uproar at USA Gymnastics? Steve Penny resigned. He was the president of USA Gymnastics, and he resigned his post. But there are many other people inside USA Gymnastics that heard about the accusations. There are stories that these things were reported and nothing was done. And then Larry Nassar just continued to have unfettered access to these little girls and young women. There needs to be sweeping change. There needs to be a total cleaning of the house, like there was at Penn State, from the top down. Everybody needs to go. Start over. Your reputation is ruined. If it's my little girl, if it's my niece, if it's someone that I care about, I'm not letting them anywhere near USA Gymnastics until these changes are made. Because honestly, as amazing as it is to see them on that stage perform the way that they do, I'm in awe of them that they could continue to do that, even while hiding abuse and suffering through abuse. not worth it. I mean, read the statements from Simone Biles. Hear what Allie Raceman has to say about how USA Gymnastics hasn't shown up at these hearings, hasn't asked her how she's doing, hasn't offered counseling. We get statement after statement about how they're heartbroken and they're sad. But you know what's going to make a difference? If people get pissed. That's what's going to make a difference. If people get mad. The social media mob mentality, man, sometimes it's a waste of energy on things that don't matter a bit. This matters. It matters. And Michigan State shouldn't be out from underneath the microscope either. Michigan State should also have to pay. There should be an investigation and not one while the jackass is still working. Because that's what was happening. He was still working and they were investigating, using my air quotations, paying people off to keep quiet. No, you're just as guilty. Again, when we talked to Dominique last year, she knew this was coming. She didn't give us any names. She just said she had spoken to some of the gymnasts and they were prepared to come forward, that they were feeling more like they had to speak up. And she at the time called for Steve Penny's ouster. And then it happened not that long after. But she said it's years and years of being told, you have to do this. You have to listen to what we say. You don't get to speak up. You don't get to defend yourself. Otherwise, you lose your opportunity. I mean, that's abuse in and of itself. So more people need to know about this. More people need to be talking about it. Again, the sentencing hearing is going on in Michigan. But the investigations, the spotlight, once his sentence is done, and he's never leaving prison ever. But what his sentences are done, the spotlight, the light needs to expose the darkness at USA Gymnastics and at Michigan State. Because Larry Nassar shouldn't be the only one who goes to jail for this. Larry Nassar shouldn't be the only one who's prosecuted. Too many women. 140. Think about that. 140 daughters, sisters, nieces, granddaughters, friends. 140 athletes had their lives changed forever. And there were probably more. So I hope that you get angry about it. Use social media. Read more about it. Inform yourself. Because this is the biggest sports story in America. And it shouldn't be over once he's sentenced.